Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Liquid Marketing's webinar on making brand work in a zero-click AI first world. We've got a lot to jump into today, so we'll probably get things kicked off here. Not too much housekeeping. Please feel free to use the chat for any questions or if you would like to get any discussions started. But otherwise, I'll get us kicked off. Again, welcome. For those I haven't had an opportunity to meet, my name is Emily Macero, and I am joined today by Senior SEO Strategist Patrick Whitener, as well as Senior Integrated Marketing Strategist Riley Sorovi. We'll get to them in a little bit. So if you've joined us for our last two webinars, you might recognize a theme. So in Q3, we talked about AI search, how AI is changing search and forcing SEO teams to rethink what visibility even means. Then in Q4, we zoomed out a little. We talked about zero-click behavior and how influence and even decision-making are increasingly happening without a click or even a clearly trackable path. So really today is almost like the next chapter in our conversation. If the last two webinars were about what's changing, I'd say this one is about how we actually respond as marketing leaders responsible for results, budget, and credibility in our organizations. That's where brand building is going to re-enter the conversation, not as a nice to have and not as something that sits apart from performance, but really as something much more foundational. So what can you expect to learn from us today? I want to talk a little bit about why performance feels harder and why brand is really the constraint. I'm going to turn it over to Patrick, and he's going to talk search, why ranking really isn't the whole story there anymore. Then Riley's going to jump in on the social front and talk about how familiarity is built through social even before the click. And really, throughout our time together today, we're going to hit what this means for your strategy this year. So I want to start with what we're hearing most often from marketing leaders right now across healthcare, higher ed, ISPs, B2B. We keep hearing some version of this. We're working harder than ever, and the results feel harder to explain. This isn't because teams forgot how to optimize. It's because the environment we're operating in has fundamentally changed. The paths to conversion have evolved, but in a lot of ways, our expectations of performance largely stayed the same. So for years, this was our playbook. We were rewarded for being great at capture, ranking for the right unbranded keywords, driving traffic efficiently, optimizing landing pages, proving ROI through very clean, clear conversion paths. That model assumes one critical thing, that when someone's ready to act, they already trust what they find. But when brand isn't doing its job, when there's no familiarity, no trust, no recognition, performance teams end up trying to manufacture demand instead of just capturing it. And that is when costs rise, when efficiency drops. That's when marketing starts to feel harder to defend internally. Because this old approach assumes that the website is where trust is formed. But there are different systems shaping buyer behavior today. Social algorithms, LLMs, and they don't reward the capture. They reward the familiarity, the authority, the recognition. In other words, they reward strong brands. So before we go any further, I want to align on what we're talking about when we say brand building, because I think many people still picture things like big, really expensive campaigns, vanity metrics, and long timelines that feel hard to justify. But that's not really what we're talking about today. Brand building is less about, the catchy slogan or the Times Square takeover. It's more about being consistently present, clear, and recognizable where decisions are starting. I also want to clarify. This is not us saying performance marketing no longer matters. We're also not saying that you should stop caring about efficiency or return. And it's definitely not a call to replace accountability with some, kind of vague brand goals. Especially in this environment, we're just doubling down on what I think we've always known, that performance is downstream of brand. And here's why that relationship matters more than it ever has before. Buyers are encountering you long before you can track them. So maybe let me ground this in a few examples. So picture a working professional considering an online program. She's not ready to apply just yet. She's just starting to explore whether going back to school even makes sense. So at that point in her journey, maybe she sees a LinkedIn post from a university that talks about career outcomes for the program that she's considering. A little later on, she's on YouTube. She sees a video from that same university. It's talking about how employers are evaluating certain credentials differently than they did a few years ago. All right, then maybe another week later, an AI search result that she does summarizes best programs for her career path. And that university's name appears because they've been consistently publishing content on that topic. So even if our prospective graduate student doesn't click through on the LinkedIn post, on a link at the bottom of the video, maybe on that AI search result, on any of those touch points, that's still brand building, doing work long before that application ever really comes into play. I also maybe want to hit a B2B example. So maybe our company is in industrial manufacturing and produces refrigerants or air filtration systems. So picture Joe, our facilities manager. He knows a change is coming. Maybe it's new regulations, maybe it's aging infrastructure. He's not in buying mode quite yet. So at that stage, he comes across a short LinkedIn post from this manufacturer explaining how upcoming regulations will affect compliance timelines. Then a little later, he sees a video from that same company breaking down the difference between legacy systems and some of these newer alternatives. It's practical and educational. It's really not salesy at all though yet. So then when you eventually ask an AI tool or maybe just a search engine for guidance, that same company's perspective appears. Again, because they've been consistently publishing expert content in the right places. So by the time procurement ever gets involved, this manufacturer is already going to feel like an obvious choice. In both of these examples, the pattern is pretty much the same. Buyers are forming opinions in these zero-click moments, in the LinkedIn carousel, in the YouTube short, in a Google AI overview, in an answer generated by an LLM. And in those moments, what influences them is not going to be the CTA. So brand is now doing this much work. The natural question becomes, what actually makes brand building effective in an environment like this? We see three things consistently showing up when brand's working. First is mental availability. When a buyer encounters a problem you solve, does your brand come to mind at all? This is especially important when you consider how overwhelmed buyers are. They're not evaluating 10 options anymore. They're narrowing down to maybe 2 or 3 before they ever start seriously researching. So if your brand is not mentally available at that moment, if it doesn't surface naturally, you're often not even in the consideration set. Because in this zero-click world, being remembered is almost like that first conversion. No amount of retargeting is going to fix that later. Second, recognizability. So across channels and formats, can someone quickly tell it's you? Your voice, your point of view, your expertise, not just your logo in the bottom corner. And this matters not only for people, but also for these platforms like AI systems that are constantly trying to understand who should be surfaced and why. And third would be consistency across your touch points. Do you feel like the same brand everywhere that you show up? Strong brands don't rely on a single campaign or channel to do all the work. They repeat ideas, they reinforce expertise, they show up in similar ways across search, social, paid, and even earned environments. Consistency is going to be what allows all of your efforts to really compound on one another. When your content looks, sounds, and feels consistent, every impression is going to reinforce the last one. And frankly, when it doesn't, that's when each channel is going to have to work that much harder on its own. So once you consider these as crucial to brand building, a lot of what's happening right now starts to make sense. Why branded search has become such a powerful indicator of demand. Why AI systems favor well-established entities over these one-off pieces of content. Why creator-style content outperforms very polished, well-designed ads. And why paid and organic can no longer operate independently. The brands that are winning today aren't more efficient. They're just easier to choose. And that's really what today is about. Not abandoning performance, not choosing brand instead of results, but understanding that brand building is what enables performance to keep working, especially in search and social, where so much influence happens before attribution ever kicks in. And that's really what we're going to unpack. The goal of today is not just to leave you nodding along with us, but also with a clearer framework for how brand building fits into your strategy in 2026. Because really, the reality is, if brand isn't doing its job, performance ends up carrying expectations it was never meant to meet. But if brand is doing its job, performance has a much better chance of succeeding, even in a zero-click AI-powered world. So with that foundation set, let's start where many of these shifts become visible. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to our SEO lead, Patrick.
Perfect. Thank you, Emily. All right. So now that we understand buyers are encountering brands earlier, more passively, and often without clicking, the stage is set for what I would like to focus on, because this is where a lot of these shifts become highly visible in the data, and that is search. One thing I want to be very clear about up front, search hasn't stopped mattering. It's still absolutely central to the decision-making process. What has changed a bit is the role that it plays in a lot of instances. Search used to be primarily where discovery happened. Now, increasingly, it's where buyers are going to confirm what they already suspect. We all see headlines about AI overviews, the rising popularity of LLMs, and zero-click results eating into organic traffic. And yes, clicks are harder to come by. Attribution definitely a little messier. Traditional ranking reports often are feeling a little less satisfying than they used to for many of us. But if we zoom out, something important becomes obvious, which is that people haven't stopped searching. They're searching more than ever. That's what the data tells us. What they're doing differently is relying more heavily on AI to filter their options for them. So that means the question SEO teams are really answering now isn't, can we rank this page? It's more like, do we look like a trustworthy source or summarizing and or citing in LLM responses? So we've known for a long time that ranking for a particular keyword isn't just about one page. Your whole website plays into it, right? So think domain authority. Now that's been sort of expanded to your entire digital footprint. Basically, modern search systems, so LLMs, Google, Perplexity, they're evaluating entities. This means that they're making decisions sort of at the brand level. For example, what someone says about your company on Reddit could now impact how you show up or how prominently you show up in AI search results. And that's exactly how brand quietly starts to determine how far SEO can actually go. Another example, so every SEO has seen this play out. You do an audit on a website, you fix the site structure, improve the content, hit all the check marks, you do everything right, and you still run into a ceiling. Meanwhile, another brand with objectively weaker SEO fundamentals keeps showing up all over search results. They're beating you out for position 1 and 2, left and right for non-branded keywords, despite their seemingly weaker SEO. Many a marketer may sit there in this position with their wheels spinning, wondering, what else can I do? Is there a glitch in the algorithm? What the heck is going on? There isn't a glitch. This is simply a reflection of how trust or authority and therefore ranking works now. At a certain point, optimization stops being the constraint and familiarity does. So search engines and AI systems lean towards sources that they recognize, sources that have been reinforced across channels. Again, they're evaluating at the entity, at the brand level. So that recognition takes more than a single well-optimized page or a clever technical fix. It comes from repeated signals over time and kind of all over the place, right? This is why brand building shows up in search outcomes, whether you plan for it or not. Let's bring back the examples Emily introduced and look at them specifically through a search lens. So think about the prospective graduate student or working professional that's exploring an online program. Again, she saw the university's LinkedIn posts, the YouTube explainer. She may have already seen an AI-generated summary. When she finally searches, and she almost always will search, she isn't starting from scratch. She's scanning for reassurance. She's asking, often subconsciously, is this school credible? Is it well known? Does it seem like a safe, respected option? Universities that are showing up consistently in those moments are the ones that have published on the same themes for long enough in enough places that search systems recognize them as authorities. That recognition shows up as being included in AI summaries, stronger brand search demand, basically fewer trust hurdles at the point of consideration. So instead of search introducing the brand, nowadays a lot of times it's more confirming it. We're sort of reinforcing confirmation bias. So the same pattern holds in B2B, including our manufacturing example from earlier. So the facilities manager who knows a change is coming up, aging infrastructure, whatever it is that's on the horizon, he's going through the discovery phase, right? Hitting those zero-click touch points from different brands as he just moves around online passively. Then, by the time he searches for guidance or asks an AI tool to summarize his option, he notices that certain company names keep appearing. At this point, once again, basically reinforcing confirmation bias. If you are showing up at this stage in the journey and you've hit your other touch points, that's going to be a green light for the buyer to convert. If you aren't showing up at this stage, you're risking the buyer doing more research at best, I would say, or selecting another brand at worst. So search did not create demand, but it absolutely reduced perceived risk. And in B2B, that's often your real job. This is why brand has such a direct impact on SEO performance now. When brand is doing its job upstream, search can become an accelerant. You show up more often and buyers are more ready when you do. Basically, non-branded and branded demands start reinforcing each other. When brand isn't doing that work, SEO is going to end up carrying expectations it was never designed to meet. You can still make progress, but every gain is definitely going to feel a little bit harder and more fragile. I absolutely do not think that is a failure of SEO. Individual marketing channels can only do so much. I think it's just a sign of where the real constraint is. All right, so what does this mean practically as we're looking ahead to 2026? For SEO teams, the role is expanding. It's less about chasing every marginal keyword opportunity, more about shaping how clearly and consistently the brand is understood by the web as a whole. It's about identifying where your expertise shows up strongly and where it doesn't yet. It's about making sure your content and your messaging reinforce the same story across time. That's also why metrics like non-branded impressions over clicks sometimes even, and branded search demand are becoming more important in internal conversations. They let you know if you're actually telling a clear story that resonates. And this is where search and social start to feed into each other in very real ways. So I'm going to pass it over to our wonderful social lead, Riley Servoy, and we can bring this full circle by discussing social's role in the ever-evolving marketing landscape of ours.
Thank you, Patrick. So we've just walked through how search is changing and how AI overviews and zero-click results are really shaping what it even means to show up. Those same dynamics don't stop at search, and in a lot of ways, they show up even more clearly on social. Social platforms are no longer just for finding a college roommate or posting a summer photo album. They've quietly evolved into a parallel search layer, a place where people are learning, validating, and forming opinions long before they ever visit your website and make a purchase. The brands that win here are the ones that feel familiar, recognizable, and consistent. So how are buyers using social? The same way they use search. They want to, 1, understand a problem, 2, hear multiple perspectives, and 3, really sanity check their point of view. They're exploring, and this is something that everyone here does. I mean, when was the last time you saw something and bought it without doing any prior research? You probably can't answer that question because especially in your personal life, but also work, this is what that journey looks like now. Maybe you're looking for a new industry event to attend this year, or like me, you need to maybe vet a new platform that will help solve a problem your team is having. And this is really what modern evaluation looks like. It's no longer a straight line. So when it came time for me to vet a new social media management platform, I'm not just Googling best social media management platform and clicking straight to a website to learn more. I'm maybe starting on LinkedIn, hearing from thought leaders that I follow on what they're using. I'm then scrolling on TikTok and I'm seeing videos from creators in the space talking about their social media management work. Maybe I'm on YouTube viewing some demos and tutorials online that are available after I've kind of seen some of these platforms and I want to see what the tool looks like actually on the inside. I'm bouncing around to all of these searches. I'm trusting ChatGPT to even round up all of my options so that no stone's left unturned. And as I'm doing this, I'm also considering which of these brands I had seen content from before, whether it was a template I downloaded, a carousel post explaining something, and if I engaged with it. Especially when you're not totally sure what you even need yet, social media is where that process is happening, and it's helping you see what other people are prioritizing and why. So the brands that keep showing up here are the ones that stick. So from that first ChatGPT prompt to AI overviews to social content, by the time I started creating that list of platforms to actually go visit on the websites, I wasn't just discovering these brands, I was validating the ones that already felt credible. And that's the shift. Social isn't just a distribution channel anymore. And skipping social doesn't just mean lost traffic. It means lost consideration. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. You can see this playing out in your own category right now. So here's a quick gut check your team can do this afternoon. Pick your top 3 buyer questions and search them like I did when I was searching for that platform, maybe across LinkedIn, TikTok, ChatGPT. And if your brand doesn't show up, ask 2 things. Who is showing up? What format are they using? How are they showing up? Is it a carousel post, a POV video, walkthroughs, paid ads, even influencer marketing? This really gives you an immediate roadmap for the brands and kind of content your audience is already encountering. Now, before we go further, there's also one mindset shift that matters because it's still where a lot of teams get stuck. Over the last decade, we've seen organic social prove that it can really brand build at scale. Like if you remember back in 2017, Wendy's came on the scene and showed what it looked like when a brand earned attention through personality and consistency. Platforms changed, TikTok came on the scene, and in 2021, Duolingo came about and really proved that organic content could build awareness and demand over time. I mean, I had never heard of Duolingo. After a few months of seeing the content and engaging in that community, I ended up downloading and they got me to do an entire year of Italian lessons. So before this, organic social really wasn't a strategic priority. It was just something brands kind of felt like they had to do. And many of you probably felt that way too. They also often had to fight internally to justify it. And that was happening as well, I guarantee, in the teams in Wendy's and Duolingo before they did what they did. So today's social is viewed very differently. And it's here to stay, but it's changed. So really make sure that it's framed properly because a lot of times we're still encountering that how do we go viral question. And the take is, viral moments are great for reach, but when we're talking about this customer journey and consistently showing up with relevant content while someone's actively evaluating, I think feels and matters even more. So instead of asking how we go viral, the better question could be, how do we show up consistently enough that our audience notices? Because it doesn't happen through one social post or one social ad campaign. It happens when organic content, influencers, and paid social all reinforce the same message. And when those tactics work together, they create 3 things every brand needs in a zero-click world: familiarity, repetition, and recognition. And those are tied to those 3 pillars: organic social, partnerships and influencers, and paid social. This is your social triple threat. And this is how brands move from being just another option to feeling like that obvious choice before someone ever clicks purchase. Let's see this in action. We can return back to our prospective graduate student, Jenny. By the time she's ready to attend an info session or book a tour, request program details and more, the university already feels like an obvious option. And that's because they built familiarity through organic social. Maybe on TikTok, the university is consistently posting trending videos in line with what Jenny is viewing and engaging with. The content feels familiar, but it's not necessarily pushing degrees in every post. They show up regularly with this content. It feels credible and relatable. And so the university feels like an obvious choice early on in her journey. Second, they're using influencer marketing. Maybe a student that goes to the university who has a large engaged following posts about their life there and more about their, what they're doing on campus. Now, Jenny's not just hearing from the university, she's hearing from someone she trusts. This repetition across both these channels is what makes that message stick. And then lastly, paid social is driving recognition at scale. It's amplifying what's already working. So they're putting spend behind some of their best organic posts, maybe something with the influencer. And this is where familiarity becomes recognition. Jenny's seen the university in the same themes in multiple places, and it feels like an obvious option. Now, this is also something we can take over to our B2B example. By the time Joe's ready to evaluate vendors or loop in procurement, the manufacturer feels like a safe, credible choice. Maybe on LinkedIn, they're building familiarity through organic social, through videos from subject matter experts. It's educational, it's product first. It's not product first, it's expertise first. The goal is to help these operational leaders understand what's changing. And so over time, even if Joe is not ready to convert, the familiar name is associated with credibility. And that takes us to that partner content. So in this instance, maybe it's not a specific influencer creator, but maybe an industry event. They partner with the industry event, co-promote content, and now this manufacturer is positioned in a larger conversation. And Joe's not just hearing from the manufacturer, he's hearing from the channels that he already follows and trusts, like an industry event. And then lastly, they're putting spend behind what works. Maybe it's targeted ads focused on specific solutions and use cases in the manufacturing industry. And this is making Joe more likely to shortlist this manufacturer when the buying window opens, even if he's not currently buying. So different industries, kind of the same outcome. Social's where brand gets built before the buyer ever hits your site. So if you want a simple way to put this into action without overhauling your entire marketing strategy, try a 30-day sprint. I know, another take-home assignment, but this is something you're likely already doing at some level. It's just a different way of organizing it so that you can yield some insights. Pick one audience segment you care about most, pick one problem they're actively trying to solve, and now build a short content series around it. It could take different forms, maybe POV video, carousel explainer, short demo. Plan for at least about 2 posts per week, say. What matters is that it really passes a basic credibility check. Does it teach something useful? Does it sound human? And does it show that you actually know what you're talking about? Start with organic content, maybe put some paid social dollars behind it if that's available. The goal isn't this viral moment, it's to create those 3 things that we talked about: familiarity, repetition, and recognition. So when your buyer sees that message, they start to trust it. Because in 2026, social is not just for keeping up with friends and family, it's where buyers decide who feels credible before they click. Now, when we started this webinar series, we asked what happens when visibility changes. Then we asked what happens when clicks disappear. Today, we answered the next question: what does a marketer do about it? The answer isn't abandoning performance, it's strengthening what performance depends on, which is brand building. Because in a zero-click AI-driven world, buyers are forming opinions earlier, narrowing options faster, and arriving at search already influenced. So if there's one thing to take away from today, it's this: if your brand isn't built before the click, performance will struggle after it. And that's the shift and the opportunity in 2026. And with that, thank you so much for spending time with us today. If this conversation was helpful, check out our brand building hub for some of our latest thinking on this topic. We're always sharing trends and insights as well, so follow us on social and sign up for our email list to stay connected and see the latest. Thank you so much.